Where to start? Thanks to the internet and the easy accessibility to millions of consumers who are actively looking for products, making money has never been easier for those who seek out products that are in demand and can be obtained at a reasonable cost. The real key to making money on the internet is to find a niche where you can succeed and then invest the time and invest the money that's needed to establish yourself correctly right from the start. Just as in the 80s when video games became the craze, many enter the market half-heartedly or on a part-time basis, and then they fail. Then they say the entire claim to the incredible riches available online is all bogus. But just as then, now there are those who enter the right market early with the right offerings, and they stay flexible. They change their business plans as the market demands. They succeed, and then they continue to succeed for years to come. Don't you wish you'd been in on the ground floor of the video arcade boom, or the personal computer age, or heck, even the VHS rental store Beanie Baby beginnings? And yet most of those businesses are now losing money or going out of business entirely. That's because their time has come and gone. And with the internet, there will be trends that come and go. That's why the place to start, as with any good business model, is by identifying a current need and then finding a way to fulfill it. But don't just jump on everything you find. Do a little market research and know what the demand is, how long it's likely to exist, and what spin-off products or related fields you can grow into if you need to. There are many possibilities for getting rich and making money online. There are more, in fact, than there are books in the library, from starting porn sites to selling import goods, or offering closeout software or personal services. The list is nearly infinite, and it's really only limited by your capabilities and your willingness to get involved. Say you're a programmer, for instance, and you like that, and you have an immediate skill set that you can offer to others and take advantage of. But will you create home database software, Bible research programs, or will you create websites? How will you reach out to the people who are willing to hire you, and what business models and overhead do you need to put into place to ensure ongoing success? That's where this ebook comes in. It's designed to help you identify those pressing details, and it's designed to help you succeed where so many fail, because we'll provide you the keys to successfully starting and building online income. But unlike so many other products that leave your choices so open that you aren't able to get any real benefit or substantial information, we're going to concentrate on a particular avenue to success: marketing products with ClickBank and other affiliates like ClickBank, where most of the business aspects, like acceptance of funds and even in some cases the materials themselves, are provided for you. So if being successful in as little as 8 days sounds like something that you want to do, then you've come to the right place. The beginning, a means to an end. As with any business venture, you really need to understand what it is you can offer that no one else can, or how you can trim costs and add value so that you're not just another name in the crowded internet landscape, but a beacon of light to those who need your help. Review what interests you have and what online capabilities and skills you can offer, and take a look at where you spend most of your time. If you enjoy writing and you're creative, you might wish to become one of the many successful authors of ebooks and materials that are sold via programs like ClickBank. If you have one or more high-volume websites that see lots of traffic in specific areas, then affiliate marketing of related materials and books that might interest your visitors might be a better approach for you. You might even want to purchase existing websites that have high volumes to enable you to reach existing markets and then offer them products that they might not even realize that they want. But you have to first think about, what do you want to do, how much effort do you want to put into it, and how much time and money are you willing to invest? No success ever comes without at least a little risk and effort. And while the old saying, the greater the risk, the greater the reward, doesn't always prove true, it does often enough that it bears mentioning. Now you must also understand that whatever you risk is indeed available to be lost. Thus you must set limits and have clear goals. All of these are parts of a business plan, and a business plan must be the first place you start, whether or not you believe it's necessary to have one. But what is a business plan? Simply put, a business plan is a document in which you've considered and written out many aspects of the current and future path that you wish your company to take. Good business plans feature details on all aspects of the economic viability of the business, including details on owned materials and goods, as well as specifics on costs and debts, plans for expansion, financing options, and marketing concerns. Generally, a full business plan runs between 12 and 14 sections. You might not need all of these, or you may want to incorporate more, depending on your business and your plans for growth. These sections include the business profile, the vision and employees, communication methods and details, organizational structure, licenses, permits, and business names, insurance, premises or location, accounting and managing cash flow, financing, e-commerce specifics, acquisitions and expansion plans, marketing and advertising, plans for growth and international trade. It's a good idea to start with a vision statement that lists in a concise manner exactly what your purpose and goal for the company is going to be. Over time, vision statements change. For instance, Microsoft used to have the vision statement of having a computer running Microsoft software on every desk in America. But once that goal had pretty much been reached, it changed to include the rest of the world and to focus more on empowering people with technology. What's important is that you understand what it is you're trying to achieve with the business, so you can work towards that goal in a systematic fashion. Something as simple as achieve meaningful income with a minimal outlay of capital by leveraging existing websites and products to sell goods to the online community might be enough for you. Or you might have even grander schemes and hope to expand into online sales and marketing full-time. By spending a little time and working out the details up front, your effort will pay off in the long run. Starting your plan. It can be hard to get started on what might seem a daunting task, like creating an entire plan for your future. But since this is a living document, it doesn't need to be all filled in at once. To begin with, you might want to focus only on a few areas, like your profile and projected expenditures and income in the market area in which you wish to invest. Some suggestions for these areas, just to help you get started, include these. Profile. Describe the business, how you plan on setting it up, and how you intend to focus on the market or the area that you want to serve. Economic assessments. Provide known details about the market, like how much money is made each year in the market, how many other players exist, and which of those are successful. Provide ideas on what you'll do to get your piece of that pie. Cash flow. Detail at least a 1-year plan of where you intend to spend your money, how and when you expect income to come in, and what you'll do to handle any unexpected expenditures or costs when they arise. Many helpful sites exist, such as the SBA or the Small Business Administration. These have resources to help you identify and plan for many of these points, so feel free to reference them. Business Plan 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, we've convinced you that you need to put together a business plan, but maybe you're still a little unclear on just what to do next. Just relax. Up next is a special guide that gives you the primary focus areas and the order in which they must be addressed before you spend any money or try to set up your business. Now, this is just a guide, but it is one that's well accepted and quite commonly used. 1. Create and write down your concept for your business. 2. Gather information on specifics and costs, details of the market, and how your business concept fits into it. 3. Using the information you've gathered, refine and write down an updated concept for your business, featuring specifics on what you plan on doing when, and why and how you plan on achieving those goals. And finally, number 4, place all of that information into a business plan format. Good business plan do's and don'ts. To help you even more, we've compiled 2 lists. The first is the list of the top things to do to create a good business plan, and the second list, the top things not to do. Here are the things to do. Number 1, complete a separate plan for every business venture you create. Number 2, research and use existing models and information to refine your efforts. Number 3, be realistic on sales and cost estimates. Number 4, compile the final plan into an attractive and well laid out document for use as a selling tool, and this will also help should financial backers be needed. Number 5, get input from others, preferably from experts in the field. Number 6, spell out the details on exactly how you'll overcome problems and the financial requirements, and provide timelines for each. Number 7, include a 1-year cash flow projection. And number 8, update your plan on a regular basis. Now for the top don'ts. Number 1, don't fool yourself or list qualities or skills that you don't actually have. Make plans to hire experts in areas for which you are not qualified. Number 2, be certain you understand all of the projected costs and that you've arranged enough financial and accounting know-how to accomplish your goals. Number 3, don't assume that your concept will work without testing it first. Let's talk about ClickBank. ClickBank has been around since 1998. It's become known as the Internet's principal retailer for digitally delivered books and products. Specializing in ebooks and software, they deliver a huge variety of digitally based products across the Internet, and they rely largely on affiliate marketing schemes to present data and available materials to the Internet browsing public. During the last 10 years, ClickBank has expanded to include more than 10,000 product publishers, with more than 100,000 registered affiliates. Every day, orders in excess of 20,000 transactions from as many as 200 countries are completed around the world, making ClickBank.com one of the single most highly trafficked sites on the Internet. The reason we focus on ClickBank as the first step in your 8 days to cash on the Internet approach is that with little to no overhead and in a very short period of time, you can begin generating revenues as a ClickBank affiliate, and then you grow your company over time into whatever avenues are of the most interest to you. What ClickBank does is it allows sellers to set their desired percentage for affiliate marketers on products that they've created and have available for sale. For instance, maybe you've written an ebook on photography. You've made it available for sale on ClickBank. Then you decide to provide any range from 1% all the way up to 75% of the selling price as going to the affiliate who actually enables the sale of the product. Then you can also set the price per download or sale of the product at pretty much any price, up to about $49.95. The reason that ClickBank allows such flexibility is that many high-volume vendors realize that setting reasonable prices and promoting affiliates into marketing by having a high percentage of the profits going into their pockets means increased volumes. And at a high enough volume of sales, even a few cents per sale is enough to generate incredible revenues. With the pure ease of earning that ClickBank offers, along with the potentially high revenues, there are many affiliates lining up to sell products. Now, the key to those who are successful is marketing and placement. Having a hyperlink on an existing page, no matter how much traffic it generates, is less likely to generate big sales than having a domain site called Get Rich Now, with full-page advertisements for each available ebook and the business plan on it. There's also the consideration that of the thousands of products and ebooks ClickBank has to offer, it's not always easy to find those relevant to your website or market share. In fact, it's been stated that if the product isn't already in the top 100 in sales, finding it on ClickBank might require special queries and skills that many affiliates simply don't have. Now, to some degree, this is true, but the advantage to this is that very saleable products that just might be a perfect fit for your venue probably exist hidden somewhere in the ClickBank archives, and they're just waiting for you to dig them out and market them. Entire companies dedicated to helping you find those products have sprung up. They're called ClickBank malls, and they use special scripts and search routines to find the documents and the products you need. If you are search impaired and can't find what you're looking for, then investing in such a company just might be worthwhile, but spending time developing your own skills with ClickBank advanced searches would probably be a more economical suggestion if you have the time. Using ClickBank. One of the reasons that ClickBank is so popular is that they handle all the cash transactions, they make any refunds, and they store and download the actual products. This takes many of the expensive and difficult to maintain e-commerce aspects right out of the equation for affiliates like you who want to cash in on the sales. It also provides a resource in which you can market your ideas and products with a built-in supplier network for those who wish to create goods and services of a digital nature but would otherwise not be able to market them. Signing up with ClickBank. Signing up as a ClickBank affiliate is a simple and easy task. To start, simply visit clickbank.com, then click the Sell Products link near the top of the page. Then in the menu that appears on that page, you click the Sign Up option, which opens a form. That form simply lays out ClickBank's terms and conditions of use and gets your address and phone number so they know where to send the checks. Filling in the form takes just a few moments, and when you're done, you receive via email a confirmation code. And at that point, you have an account and you're able to market and sell ClickBank products on all of your websites. What next? Well, once you're an affiliate, you have 3 ways of making money on ClickBank. You can use any one or all 3 of these as you see fit and as they fit into your business plan. They include 1. Acting as an affiliate to market products of ClickBank publishers and earning commissions on each sale. 2. Earning commissions by referring new publishers to ClickBank. Or 3. Creating new digital media goods for sale on ClickBank yourself, otherwise known as becoming a publisher. ClickBank Search. Regardless of the methods you choose, becoming proficient in searching the ClickBank marketplace is vital to a successful venture. Using the ClickBank search page, you can search the categories and subcategories of different products by keyword and then sort the results by many different criteria. The search results show you a list of products that match your criteria. Along with each product is a link to its pitch page. That's where you'll see exactly how each product is presented to customers. You can also find out how much you could earn for each converted customer referral. Using specific keywords and the advanced search options, you can search the marketplace for descriptions by entering search terms in the left-hand box and then choosing categories from the drop-down boxes. By default, a search finds results that contain any of the words in your search text, so it's best to use very specific keywords and a minimum number of them to limit your returns. For instance, if you're interested in searching for golfing instructions, you might type in golf swing, but then you'd get hits for the word swing, ranging from dance lessons to children's playground equipment. In many cases like this, at least some false hits are going to occur, so minimizing any non-specific keywords to as few as possible helps keep the number of returned results to an actually relevant number. Searches are sorted by popularity by default. They're not sorted by relevance or score, but you can use the drop-down box above the search results to resort the order of the results by one of the following criteria: popularity, gravity, dollars earned per sale, percentage earned per sale, percentage referred, and percentage of commission. Site sell. Obviously, using ClickBank and becoming an affiliate is an easy, practically risk-free way to break into the world of e-commerce. The publishers create the goods, the site hosts the product and supplies them, and the site even takes care of handling the money. All you need to do is promote the products on your website and then provide links to the selling site so that you're identified for the commission. This means that your job, as it relates to being a ClickBank affiliate marketer, is to simply create websites that attract high volumes of visitors and then redirect those to available and pertinent publisher sites on ClickBank. One tool that helps you accomplish this is manufactured by SiteSell. It's called Site Build It, or SBI for short. SBI creates theme-based websites that are designed to attract targeted visitors and then guide them through to publishers' pitch pages. SBI has everything you need to execute building a website and start your ClickBank success story. It's a great way for a novice to get feet wet, although it's flexible enough to be useful for expert site builders and creators as well. According to web surfing statistics tracked by netcraft.com and alexa.com, more than 35% of SBI sites ranked in the top 1% of all sites on the internet. When expanded to the top 3%, this number leaps to over 62%, showing an incredible value for hosting and building a site as compared to using standard web hosting services. Now, part of the beauty of SBI in conjunction with 8 Days to Cash is that you don't need to be a programming expert or you don't need to purchase expensive software such as Front Page, Dreamweaver, or Go Live, although SBI is compatible with these products. You don't need search engine expertise to set your site's ranking or expensive website consultants to make certain that your page is optimized. Google AdWords. If you've never heard of Google, then you probably aren't a resident of planet Earth. However, like Microsoft, Google has become a household name and expanded into realms unrealized by many web surfers. Google is more than just a search engine. They offer services, advertising, and one of the hottest trends in online marketing today, targeted advertising in the form of AdWords. Now, everybody hates advertising, right? Or do we? Maybe it's not so much the advertising itself that we hate. After all, those Budweiser frogs are fun to watch. It's being pitched a stool softener while eating bean dip, or hearing about feminine itching in a room full of guys watching a ball game. That might make you a little uncomfy. But would you be upset if all of the advertisements were, say, for things that you actually thought were cool and actually wanted to buy? Just imagine. You're watching sports, and the commercial comes on discussing how you can visit the Rangers training camp, or it shows you how to buy great sports memorabilia, or you were watching your favorite science fiction show and ads of a fan nature for upcoming comic books, movies, models, all of those came on. It would be hard to complain about that now, wouldn't it? Well, as far as your television goes, that day might be a ways off, but on the internet, the time has arrived, and that is the idea behind AdWords. All thanks to Google, no longer do you need to send a message to everyone to get the people who are interested in seeing your advertisement. A program called AdSense runs to allow web page designers to gain revenue from existing web pages by simply adding a specific bit of code that targets other relevant page advertisements. This software then helps target and generate hits and links to promote only sites that you flag as relevant via AdWord keywords and the content of the site in question. With tools to automatically deactivate poorly performing pages and track and rate CTR, that's click-through rates, AdSense automates what essentially an entire industry of advertising executives has already charged millions of dollars to attempt to do for the last century, and it can be argued that it's one of the fastest-growing segments of income on the internet today. Now, the way you generate revenue is much like ClickBank's sell-through links, in that links to related sites, that is, like having links to ClickBank products, can be shown, and then when a user clicks on them from a link on your page, you get the credit. It's credited to your account based on either the fact they click through or the fact that they then purchased from the site in question. Now, AdWords and AdSense are a bit more advanced, and a little bit of development knowledge is required to really get it going on your site. But the potential benefits and income that you can generate, as well as the ability to target other sites to your users' interests, makes it a unique and interesting opportunity that you really should consider anytime you undertake a web development project. Keywords. With AdWords, it all boils down to the keywords you choose. For instance, selling shoes is not targeted, and a query that returns sites listing boots or shoes when the user is specifically looking for tennis shoes won't be as successful as using keywords like tennis shoes, sneakers, and sportswear to target the page in question. While it's true that tennis shoes are shoes, you must understand that users looking for hiking boots are less likely to buy or be satisfied with your site if you link them to a page full of Reeboks without a single boot. The idea of a keyword is to be specific and bear in mind the relationship that your link will have to the search your customer undertakes. Google supplies a keyword tool to check performance of your keywords, so ongoing tweaking will ensure that a perfect match is easy. The quality score is the measurement of just how well a keyword is performing, and it's used by Google to determine costs on CTR, again click-through rates, on advertising that you are doing as well. The higher the score, the lower the fee, so it pays to spend your time getting good keywords if you're going to utilize AdWords to promote your ClickBank site. The other side of AdWords. Now I hear you saying, hey, wait a minute, what do you mean a fee? Up till now, we've discussed affiliate marketing using AdSense. The answer is yes, you can link to other sites and get paid with AdWords. But then you can also list your own website so that queries on, say, Get Rich Quick or maybe How to Get Started in Internet Marketing actually link to your landing page, or as Google calls it, site for your product. Now, landing sites, to have a good quality score and thus lower fees, need these three things. 1, they must be easy to navigate. 2, they must be full of relevant top-level links to specific keywords. And 3, they must be general enough to be useful, meaning not just a single item that's closely related to the keywords, but several items. Creating landing sites. With AdWords, as with ClickBank, you need landing sites where customers will go to read about the product or the ebook you're pitching. As with any advertisement, a successful landing site needs to look good, catch the interest of the reader quickly, and then get the point across. Key points to ensure a quality landing site are these: keywords and phrases, organized ad grouping, correctly addressed destination URLs, a maximum cost per click, and correct keyword matching types. Good ads and bad ones. With AdWords, there are preview ads that show up on the query site to help guide your customer to your landing site. These need to be top quality. They need to show what your landing site is all about, and they need to be concise. Use this basic framework: a title line of 25 characters or less, 2 lines of descriptive text, each of 35 or less characters, and finally an actual URL. With this short amount of text, your ad must get the reader's attention, let them know what it is your product does and why they need it, and then move them to action to click the link you've provided. Keywords. Let's clarify just how keywords relate to AdWords. Google AdWord keywords are any words pulled from the suggested list or created on your own that might trigger or reject an advertisement. The more relevant a keyword is to a specific ad, the more likely that ad is to be selected, and therefore have a higher CTR, click-through rate, than less compatible ads. Having good keywords means more than just better positioned advertisements. It means higher quality scores and thus lower rates. Some attributes of good keywords to bear in mind include 1. The likelihood of relevant hits based on search criteria. 2. Relevance of your products on the actual landing site itself. And 3. The cost, because the better you do, the less it's going to cost you. Keywords are given a quality score by evaluating the following criteria. First, the click-through rate. Second, the relevance of your ad's text compared to the keywords. And third, the historical keyword performance for any specific keyword. More about AdWords. This new type of advertising is called conceptual advertising, and while new, the capabilities of being able to place a search-oriented paid listing onto an existing website is making it spread like wildfire. Now, this is because not only is it great for search engine providers and companies who sell goods and services, but for the advertisers and the consumers as well. This is truly an idea whose time has come. Contextual advertising, when done right, bases the content of a web page automatically towards the bias of the kind of people who frequent those pages. Thus, it targets consumers most likely to be interested in purchasing those particular goods and services. Now, in addition, since it allows an individual with a private website to bring in income in the form of advertising revenue with little to no user impact, affiliates are more than happy to subscribe. The only real beware to contextual advertising is for the advertisers themselves. They must know whether or not they're spending too much to justify their click-through rate and whether the profit margin and volumes they're seeing match their investments. How to calculate what a prospect is worth. Ideally, you already know just about how much income you can generate per customer, and you know if your business is likely to have repeat customers or if it will be made up of one-time sales. These factors are vital to understanding whether being an advertiser with AdWords makes sense for you, because if you're likely to have only one sale per customer, then any money you spend on advertising to get that customer into the store needs to be more than made up for by the profit margin on the goods themselves. Most companies spend an average of 7% of their revenue on advertising, based in part on the previous year's budget, but other approaches do exist, and one of those might make even more sense for the typical ClickBank or direct marketer. To start with, identify all expenditures, short and long term, that might generate a profit. Secondly, rank these in terms of how effectively and how quickly they work. Last, divide the marketing costs by anticipated sales revenue, then take a percentage of that for each marketing scheme you've identified. There's much more to AdWords than just what we've gone over here. Things like how to bid, how to determine CTRs, and how to custom tailor your advertisements can all be researched on Google itself and inside of the AdWords and AdSense online documentation and training. This has really just been a brief overview to show you one of the exciting new advertising schemes that's out there. The point is, it's custom tailored to the ClickBank and 8 Days to Cash approach to getting rich. AdWords is not the only such program either. So if you do decide to pursue increasing revenue by driving market share to your landing sites, be sure to check out these alternatives. The Yahoo Publisher Network at publisher.yahoo.com. The main competitor to Google at this stage although they don't support an add links type of feature at this time. Industry Brains at industrybrains.com, offering contextual advertising to businesses involved with government, technology, and the financial districts only. Commission Junction Evolution at cj.com. Not functional yet, but there's a beta available to top-tier publishers, and they will add a new twist by connecting to an affiliate program. Last but not least, MSN at advertising.msn.com. Nobody can beat Microsoft when it comes to sheer volume, and they're offering some great tools and competitive features in their bid to enter this market as well. The World Wide Web, the Internet, or just the web, or whatever you want to call it. It goes without saying that the thing is here to stay. And in fact, it's become so commonplace that odds are your grandparents are probably online. Here's a quick history of the web. Nope, sorry, Al Gore did not actually invent the Internet or the World Wide Web. To tell the truth, a group of scientists at research facilities and universities set up a link at the request of the U.S. government to transmit ASCII-encoded text messages throughout a distributed network architecture. The Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, ARPANET for short, was developed by the United States Department of Defense as the world's first operational packet switching network, the predecessor of what we know as the Internet. And while the rest of us were still using our dial-up modems to connect across our phone lines to local bulletin board systems, Tim Berners-Lee of Geneva, Switzerland proposed using encoded text to transmit formatting along with content. Thus, hypertext and what we now know as the Internet began to take shape. Today, while much has changed since those early days, the basics remain pretty much the same. Software on your system, your web browser for instance, downloads content and formatting information from a website. The formatting language, known as HTML or Hypertext Markup Language, is used by your browser to display the web page on your computer screen, using local resources to render multimedia elements such as animations and audio, while streaming the actual data for those elements directly from the web. As far as 8 days to cash is concerned, only a minimal amount of expertise is all you need to cash in on the internet boom. But still, the more you know, the better prepared you are to make informed decisions. And you'll also find it easier to take advantage of features and tools like Google's AdSense. But there's nothing to stop you from hiring that expertise, provided that you know what you want and you have an idea of what it takes to accomplish it. In short, you don't need to be a computer expert to run a website, whether your website focuses on ClickBank sales or direct marketing. With just a basic understanding of a few internet elements and what's involved, you should be able to hire expertise without getting ripped off. And in this section, we'll try to provide you just such a primer. Basics of HTML. Whether you use HTML, Hypertext Markup Language, or XML, it all boils down to the word language. Imagine you get a document that has instructions for making souffle, and one line at the top is written in French. Now you, not really understanding French, ignore that line, and for years, your souffle is okay, but it's missing something. Then one day, you upgrade to understanding XML, or French, in this example, and suddenly the instructions include a note that says, be sure to blend the mixture in steps 1 and 2 prior to adding the other ingredients. And your souffle takes on a whole new realm of taste. Now this is the difference between HTML and XML. They both encode ASCII text according to the W3 Consortium's HTML standards, and most browsers display some form of the layout and functionality regardless of the page's underlying code. But really, you want to use a browser that fully supports the most intricate commands you're using. That's why many websites display a Best Viewed On message that indicates a certain version of web browser in which that particular page looks best. Software to consider. Many software packages exist to help you create web pages and maintain your site. But the two prime contenders are Dreamweaver and Microsoft FrontPage. Both have older versions readily available on eBay and other closeout sources, and we recommend both products. As with any business starting a website, you'll have certain startup costs that you need to absorb before seeing a return on your investment. In the 8 days to cash method, this is minimal, but should you wish to expand, you need to be certain that you have enough funds to carry you through any initial startup expenses until you reach profitability. Another reason we mentioned SBI earlier is that outsourcing the hosting and administration of a website drastically reduces startup costs. This is because you don't have to pay for a server or a dedicated web connection. Plus, you won't need to hire your own team of IT professionals. Now, ideally, if you're going to become an online entrepreneur, you'll want to set up your own server farm with direct connections to the internet. But even then, if you choose to go that route, you don't have to start there. Website specifics. Enough theory and basic knowledge. It's time to get specific. How exactly should you get started with your ClickBank 8 Days to Cash on the Internet program? Obviously, you must decide how to best set up a business and infrastructure, and whether you want your own server farm or you want to outsource. But since our focus is on fast, cheap, and getting cash coming in, let's look at the simplest and most cost-effective methods to achieve those goals. Web browsers. There are many web browser packages available today, but Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Opera are the most common, and of these, Internet Explorer is the most prevalent. While most advanced features are supported even in older versions of these browsers, we recommend that you keep your web design as simple and straightforward as possible. This is for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is ease of maintenance on your part, and it helps to make certain that the site works as expected, regardless of which browser your customer is using. Editors. Your site editor could be one provided by SBI, or you might use Microsoft Front Page, or you might write your sites by hand in a text editor like Notepad. As a recommendation for ease of use, we recommend SBI, since they handle the hosting, creation, and the management. But if you're going to purchase your own domain and hosting, then a package like Front Page that's both easy to use and readily available is probably your best choice. Optimizing your site. Whatever your choice of software, your goal should be to make a fast-loading, easy-to-navigate, and visually interesting site that's not too busy. The fewer and smaller the images you use, the better, and gee whiz features like flash animations, while interesting and entertaining the first time you see them, can actually become annoying very quickly when users are forced to view them or wait on them time and again to load up. So be very careful where you invest your time and energy. Your rule for including it on the page should be that if it doesn't sell the product or provide a service to the customer, then the customer shouldn't have to wait to download it. Part of enhancing the user experience is making sure your downloads happen fast. A second way is making sure that your site is easy to navigate. And third, keeping distractions to a minimum. If you can balance these three things while supplying enough visually interesting info to sell your product, my friend, you have a winning page. Optimizing images. One of the biggest points of confusion for most webmasters and would-be domain owners deals with image quality and size, due in part to the complex nature of images on computers and the fact that so much is done behind the scenes. It's not really surprising that most folks don't understand what's really going on. But, to tell the truth, it's not too difficult. In an ideal world, all our computer monitors would be the same physical size and set to the same desktop size. And then, since every computer screen displays about 72 dots per inch, if they were all the same, we could easily figure that a 1-to-1 scale of an image at 72 dpi would be all that's ever needed. Any image with a DPI greater than the default of 72 is larger than necessary and would need to be expanded on screen to actually show the full dots per inch of which it's capable. But here in the real world, all of our desktop settings and screen sizes are different, and that just adds to the confusion for some. But the basics still apply regardless. The problem with images that have a resolution greater than 72 dots per inch and images that are physically large, meaning how large they appear on screen, full size in your editing program, is that there's a great deal of information that's stored and then transmitted across the connection to the user's computer. And of course, the more detail that has to be downloaded, the longer the download takes, regardless of whether the end result justifies the extra time. That's why some web pages seem to take forever to fully load, even though you don't see any special images. That simple 2x2 image on screen might actually be a 300 dots per inch 4x6 that's shrunk down when it's displayed, but it still requires a ton of data and thus download time before your browser adjusts the size and degrades it to fit where it's been placed. For a little more insight, you can visit sites like ehow.com or take a look at the online help in your web designer software program like Front Page or Dreamweaver. You can also get your hands on software that's designed to optimize image size based on your intended usage, and many web page publishing packages have built-in optimizers as well. But if you simply keep in mind that 72 dots per inch is what is shown on screen, and that so long as the visual appearance is good, it's good enough, you'll do fine. Image formats. There are many image formats to consider. The most common on the web are JPEG or JPG, and the next most common is GIF. In the web world, these formats are king, but for storage and manipulating images, both of these don't foot the bill very well. JPEG formats lose quality every time you save the image, and GIF images are restricted to only 256 colors. For saving originals, or for editing purposes, a TIFF or a WMF format is widely accepted, although many packages like CorelDRAW and Corel Paint have proprietary formats all their own. Hosting your site. Originally, the only way that you could get onto the internet was to have a Unix server that connected via a modem to the backbone and then shared information via BBS-like systems. As the internet expanded and took off, more and more servers came up and the structure became much more solidified, to the point where virtual servers became all the rage, and by simply dialing into an existing server and connecting via whichever available IP address it had free at the moment, you could access the web. Now, this is the most common method of connection for most of us who use DSL or dial-up or cable. On the other hand, for heavy-duty business connections, and not quite so common for residential service, are dedicated internet connections with static IP addresses. A static IP address is a number that's assigned to a physical computer by the Internet Service Provider, or ISP, to identify it, much as a phone number identifies you as the owner of the telephone. Computers use IP addresses on the Internet to look up and communicate with other computers. So when you type in a friendly name, your computer asks a DNS or domain name server to find the actual IP address for that name. Then your computer is routed to speak with that machine, much as calling an operator and asking to be connected to a particular named person in a city would do for you back in the days when Ma Bell worked. Now, ideally, every computer would have its own static IP address, but there simply aren't enough IP numbers to fulfill the growing need, much less the potential need if people continue to go online. Now, for this reason, most internet service providers charge an additional fee if you want a static IP address to host websites. Or you can use what's called dynamic DNS service, and you'll either enable your site to be seen as existing on the web and allow you to host your website right in your home, or you can pay someone else to host the site for you. Do it yourself. If you choose to obtain a static IP address or a DNS service to simulate the same and create your own server, then welcome to the world of geekdom, my friend. You need to know what expert computer skills and dedicated and timely security updates and backups are critical at all times, and if you can manage that, then you'll be just fine. Buying a server. Depending on what you intend to do, you might not need much hardware to host your site. Even an old 486 with internet capability is more than capable of hosting a simple ClickBank site, so don't break the bank buying the best top-of-the-line machine you can find. Remember, get what you need, not necessarily what you'd want. Something with some form of backup that's readily available, such as a Pentium 4 Dell server coming off lease by the truckload. Make good choices, and these can be had for pennies on the dollar. Remember, if you buy an expensive high-end server, all the support and maintenance software is likely to be expensive and high-end too. And if you don't need it, why shell out all that cash? Professional hosting services. I know I keep coming back to this, but really it simply makes sense to consider using one of the many hosting services that exists today, especially when you're just getting started, because the added expense of static IP addresses alone can almost pay for monthly hosting fees from some providers. And their built-in nightly backup and security updates make the difference between success and failure in today's market. How to choose a host. Services like SBI by SiteSell are excellent for novices because they do so much of the background work for you. Many domain registrars like Register.com also provide startup sites and the editing software to get you going with minimal work and no need to hire a hosting service per se. But if you choose to have your site hosted, there are a few things you must check on from any potential service company you might consider. These are: 1. Do they allow commercial traffic and sales? 2. What additional fees are there for volume trafficking? 3. Do they handle backups and emergency restoration of a site? 4. How much space is included with the deal? 5. What is their performance and reliability rating? And 6. What features do they support, like Perl, CGI, MySQL, and front page extensions? Optimizing your downloads. Earlier, we discussed image size and how anything greater than 72 dots per inch at a 1-to-1 ratio was probably just wasted time. But there are other files that can be optimized as well. In addition, any downloads for products you create or link to can be compressed by packages like pkzip to make the actual file being downloaded smaller until the customer unpacks or expands it. For not only your customer satisfaction, but to minimize excessive bandwidth fees from a hosting provider, it's a good idea to trim the fat wherever you can. Securing payments. With the 8 days to cash system, we're concentrating on ClickBank products, so payments and fund transfers are pretty much handled seamlessly for you. But someday you might expand or begin selling directly, so understanding some of the behind-the-scenes aspects of exactly how online payments are handled is a good thing to know. First and foremost, you must know that anytime you're dealing with credit cards or online payments, having a secure site is vital, identified by HTTPS, and you must direct customers to never enter data into a site that is not secure or to click on links in emails to go to payment sites, as this type of fraud is the most common. Setting up a merchant account that normally entails a monthly fee enables you to accept credit cards. But other methods can allow you to accept credit cards online, such as signing up for services with PayPal.com or one of the other online eCash programs. No matter who you choose to go with or how you decide to accept payment, be sure that you know the answer to these questions as you research your options. First, what types of customers will you have? 2. How will your customers interact with your website? 3. How do you control their interaction? 4. How much in sales do you expect on a monthly basis? And finally, 5. Will profits justify the cost? Merchant accounts. Many shopping cart companies exist, and they simply provide online handling of funds in a secure environment. Most of these still require you to have a merchant account, which is a specialized bank account that allows you to authorize credit cards. A few of the companies that support this include 2checkout.com, authorize.net, cybersource.com, and verisign.com. But a great start would be to try your local bank. Many banks, like Bank of America, Washington Mutual, and Wells Fargo, now feature e-commerce gateway solutions. eCash payments. Besides merchant accounts, there's a more common payment method on the web today. It's called eCash, where direct cash transfers go from a bank or holding facility into your account. These are easier to set up than merchant accounts, but they're not always as secure, and they may be seen by your customers as somewhat of a hassle. The largest of these is PayPal.com, and it's owned and run by the network giant eBay. But others exist, like these: eCashTechnologies.com, ProPay.com, PayTrust.com, PayByWeb.com, and MoneyZip.com. A closer look at PayPal. Other than ClickBank's built-in payment system, there may be no simpler method for accepting eCash than PayPal. If your customer has an email address and a credit card or bank account, they can send you money. For that service and the various guarantees PayPal provides, they charge retailers 30 cents plus 2.9% of the transaction amount. Compare that to the 5 to 6% most credit card companies charge. Although you can lower these fees by signing up as a preferred customer or a PayPal merchant. Now, despite the simplicity and the fairly low costs, PayPal does have some faults. For example, it's nearly impossible to get a real person to address your issues. And if their online forms fail, you just might find yourself on the line for a problem that wasn't yours to start with. Yahoo PayDirect. One of the major competitors to PayPal is PayDirect, which operates in much the same way. Fees are similar, 2.5% of the transaction fee and 30 cents each. And again, they have preferred customer rates, but only if your PayDirect payments exceed $2,000 a quarter. They also have a 2-level security system, a Yahoo ID and a Yahoo security key, both of which are required to use PayDirect. And this is where things might break down. To order from you, your customers must have or be willing to get both of these. eCount. eCount has more features than most of the other payment services. It's actually a debit account system that can be used as both a credit card and as an email-based payment system. Users place funds in their accounts and then they spend that money on the web, or they access the funds via an optional ATM card, just as with many prepaid credit cards. Advantages include the fact that there's no additional fee to spend the money or purchase something, although a $2 fee is applied when money is transferred from a credit card to an eCount account. There are limits, though, since it's only accepted as a MasterCard and only within the continental United States. With great security and privacy features, eCount, for instance, uses VeriSign certificates to protect credit card info, as well as full access to contact details, a customer liability statement, and detailed privacy statements. eCount is a great option for a fledgling business. ProPay. One great thing about this service is that you, rather than your customer, signs up at ProPay, which is a big benefit since it protects your customer from being hassled. Just as with credit card systems, when you accept payment from a customer, you go to the site and enter the email address and amount into a form, and the customer receives a payment request email with a unique URL to a secure page. They follow the link, fill in their credit card details or check information, and payments initiated. This is very similar to the system ClickBank employs, and it's one of the better approaches as we see it. Online merchant accounts. In the ideal scenario, you would simply open a merchant account and then accept credit cards directly, doing all the wizardry necessary to set up shopping carts on your websites and protect customer data and so forth. But in reality, startups often don't have the resources or the time to accomplish this. But what if you need to? Well, welcome to the world of tiered services customer billing. Companies like iBill at iBill.com and 2Checkout, that's the numeral 2 then the word checkout.com, offer solutions that outsource billing and credit card processing for a flat percentage of the sale price. You can use their storefronts or add functionality to your websites to enable the e-commerce to attach to their secure servers. In the case of 2Checkout, there's a $49 fee and then 45 cents per transaction plus 5.5%, again comparable to most merchant accounts and much easier to set up and maintain. The pros and the cons of acceptance. Why use ClickBank? As you've seen, there are many things to consider if you intend to deal with payment acceptance. And of course, you must worry about keeping customer records safe, ensuring that customers feel good about giving you their details, and chargebacks too. All of these are good reasons why using ClickBank and its payment methods simply makes sense. Security basics. Whether you decide to host your site as a standalone server with a static IP address or use a dynamic DNS service, or if you go with having it hosted for you, it's a good idea to understand just a little bit of online security. First and foremost are passwords. Never use a password that has part of your name in it or a sequence of numbers. And always try to include at least one uppercase and one non-numeric symbol in passwords. If you must write it down, keep a password locked up in a vault or a safe. And most important of all, nothing is safe if it can be physically accessed. So if you have a server, that server could be stolen. If you have a safe and it's not bolted to the floor, it too could be stolen. Lock doors, lock up computers, and password lock all secure files if you want to keep it as safe as you can. That way, even if you lose your hardware, your valuable customer data is uncompromised. All about domain names. Where do we start when we talk about domain names? Of course, you know the name you type into your browser when you want to visit a particular website, and for the most part, that's the domain name, at least as far as most people ever need or care to know. But when it comes to the internet, we always start with the friendly name or the domain name that exists in English, which you recognize as being the address for the site. For instance, clickbank.com or microsoft.com are easily recognizable domain names that you've probably heard of and probably even visited. But what really is a domain name, and what's all the fuss about? A domain name is really just the English-friendly name that you register with the W3C consortium for your IP address. For instance, goldwing-world.com links to a website associated with its author, and it's owned by that individual, so you cannot use that name. It's already spoken for, unless he's willing to sell it to you. Likewise, many of the best site names might already be taken, and even if they're available for sale, they might actually be worth more than their weight in gold. In fact, sales of domain name leases, or the right to register and use the domain name, have exceeded $7.5 million. And even with the expansion of extensions like .biz, it's more than possible that even higher prices will be paid for the perfect name. Like those hard, semi-clear stones that really aren't good for much other than cutting and etching, the value's not what they're good for, but what they're used for. And while diamonds just might be a girl's best friend, a good domain name is an advertiser's way to riches and fame, and maybe even a few of those stones we were just talking about. Many domain registration sites exist. They're called registrars, like register.com, and they all basically do the same thing. They sell you, or rather lease you, a domain name. Most of them also have tools that allow you to search for variations of names, like sellbooks.com, and then they show you existing alternatives if that name is not available. And as with most things in life, compromise is necessary for most of us. Just be sure to choose the best one you can, and then buy it and any near names, such as the .org and .net renditions that might be available, just to ensure that no one else ends up riding your future success by creating a copycat site, hoping to get some of your business through mistypes and misspellings. Trust us, it's happened before. The group officially responsible for assigning domain names is called the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or ICANN for short. They are those who are responsible for managing the DNS system and controlling the root domain, and they delegate the control for each top-level domain in a given domain name registry. Each CCTLD, or country code top-level domain, is normally controlled by the government of a specific country, but even then, ICANN has a consulting role. Technically, domain names are not purchased but leased for periods of time, in much the same way as automobiles or real estate. But in many cases, a significant amount of money is given to owners of a given lease to pry away juicy names that are considered valuable due to branding, advertising, or search engine optimization rankings. Some companies offer below-cost or even free domain name registrations if you agree to let them host your site for a period of years, much in the same way as cell phone companies give away phones with service contracts, knowing that they'll make back the difference before the lease period is up. Originally, the structure of the web called for each subdomain structure to follow a strict hierarchy, where the type of organization would dictate what domain extension you have. For instance, a .com or .biz address would only be used for businesses of a commercial nature, while .net and .info would be for organizations of a teaching or informational bent. Unfortunately, the idea, while sound enough, was never really enforced, just encouraged, and as such, site operators who wanted to have memorable addresses would register with the .com extension even if they didn't sell goods or match the appropriate structure. In the early days of domain registration, this and other trends such as subdomaining led to what was considered abuses by established companies with trademark rights in the form of cybersquatting, in which a domain name that technically was a trademark word could be purchased and then held for ransom until or unless the company bought it out. To help restrict this, laws and policies have been put into place to allow for forcible transfer in certain instances, but at times, even these rules were misused, and perfectly legitimate site owners had their sites hijacked just because the generic wording of their name came too close to a trademark in some context. Since there are so few one-word .com domains, an interesting trend has been to make use of top-level domains as part of the website title, such as spelling out delicious.com as del.icio.us.com. But such trickery, commonly referred to as a domain hack, is rarely effective, since while it's easy to remember the word delicious, it's hard to remember where the periods go. Buying and selling domain names is a job in and of itself now, and it's called domaining. Those who work on the job are known as domainers. The people who sell a value estimation of a website are simply appraisers, a task that can be much harder than the name would imply, since domain names like business.com have been appraised for and sold for as much as $7 million. And as with all things of value, domain names can even be stolen at times, the most notorious example being the forged transfer instructions for sex.com that resulted in losses of millions of dollars per month of advertising revenue for the rightful owner, and from which two separate lawsuits arose, one against the thief and one against the registrar. While all of this is very interesting, the key point is this, plain and simple. The domain name itself, separate from any content or business associated with it, has value, if only the value of the registration fee itself. In the real world, however, the fair market value of a domain name can range upwards of $8 or $9 million. So, buyer beware, be damned. Another interesting aspect of domain names is intercapping, where capitals are interspersed with lowercase letters. This normally works fine since the domain name system is not case sensitive, but some names can be misinterpreted by whoever reads them. For instance, who represents with a capital W and a capital R in lowercase might be read as whore presents, which I think you and I both know is not the type of name that the Guild of Agents and Artists who registered the domain had in mind when they chose the name. Other classic examples of lack of foresight when choosing a domain name include Therapist Finder, which could be read as The Rapist Finder, or Pin Island, is perhaps a disappointment to the many would-be porn site searchers who thought Penis Land was just a click away. So to avoid these types of problems, liberal use of a hyphen is recommended. And yes, even geeks can fall victim to this sort of problem, as attested to by the change from Expert Sex Change to Experts-Exchange for the domain name belonging to the website of a long-standing group of programmers. Misinterpretation due to intercapping could also lead to legal issues too, as was seen when StealThisEmail.com was threatened due to the belief that Stealth is Email infringed on a trademark to the word stealth held by Leo Stoller. What's in a name? Getting a successful domain. To register a domain as your own is very simple. Simply visit a registrar's website and search for an available name. Then, once you've decided on one that's available, you pay a yearly fee, which can be prepaid several years in advance to reserve the name. Once you're done, you're given details of the name's registered lookup address to provide to your host provider, and in many cases, such as with Register.com and of course with SBI and other hosting companies, they handle registering the domain name and they manage the name in the DNS lookup tables for you. If a name that you really want is already taken, use tools like whois.domaintools.com to find out who the registered owner of a name is, and you can use that info to make them an offer for it. Although many times, the better domain names are worth many thousands of dollars, even if the site itself has no value. Use of hyphens and careful and clever use of synonyms and dictionaries could also be of invaluable use in the brainstorming phases of such difficult but vital efforts. But we can't imagine trying to find a domain name without taking advantage of the suggestion wizards like Register.com and Nameboy.com offer. They get keywords from you, your name, and your location, and then they offer hundreds of available options that they think might tickle your fancy. Often that's all they tickle, but even then they can lead to that sudden moment of lucidity when the perfect name slams into your mind, and then you have only to see if it's still available. Despite our description of how simple it is to get a domain name, we can't stress just how important it is that you don't leap at the first available opening. Be certain that you've thought out all the permutations and you've exhausted all of the better options as being not available before committing to a name that might be hard to remember, might be difficult to type, or just too busy for a user to want to type it in more than once. A domain name like God.com, for instance, is clearly going to be a site about God, while a site named ChristianStuff.net might not have anything to do with God, Christianity, or even religion, and most people would reason that out from the name itself. So for this reason, you don't want to pick a name that has little to no bearing on the goods or services that you intend to market. Since we're focusing on ClickBank products for your 8 days to cash business venture, how-to books and info should be the keywords you focus on. So a domain name like knowledgeseller.com or knowledgeseller.info, where you focus on supplying info with links to related ClickBank landing sites for available products at various points, would be a super domain to own. Choosing a registrar. If choosing the name is important, then selecting a site to receive it or host it is a close second. One of our personal favorites, due to fair pricing, host of free tools, and wide range of available options, is Register.com. But the following list, who barely touches the surface of the available registrars, all have their benefits. GoDaddy.com, Nameboy.com, NetworkSolutions.com, Register.com, and WebsitePalace.com. Many links and articles talk about the skills and techniques necessary to find and reserve a good domain name, but really it boils down to being patient, using the tools that are available, and waiting to find just the right name for your needs. If, for instance, you love the domain name exquisite-writing.com, but it's taken, try variations around the same thing, like writing-excellence.com or excellent-writing.com, and all of the derivatives like .net and .org. If you find a domain name that you really like, but you just aren't certain if it's it, well, go ahead and reserve it for the yearly fee, but then keep searching for that perfect name. That way, the name's not snatched out from under you while you do your search, and you'll only be out $20 or $30 or so, less if you go with a discount domain registrar like Website Palace or Nameboy. Some good articles and info about domain naming techniques can be found at some of these sites: internic.net, wikipedia.org, checkdomain.com. Visit these sites and get some valuable info today. Sell yourself, or what you know. In the normal business world, the key is location. Online, it's supposedly your domain name and the click-through rate, CTR, of your advertisements. But you know what's really the most important key to success, whether you're selling a product in a regular store or online? Knowing what your strengths are and using those strengths in the best manner possible. If you can write program code like there's no tomorrow, then selling software and custom tailoring it for a fee makes excellent sense. On the other hand, if you can manage software developers and have great people skills, then hiring one of those and establishing the same business could also work. But if you're a perfectionist who can't stand to ship or sell a product unless it's beyond reproach, and you hate to change something once it meets your vision of excellence, well, software is certainly not the field for you. Business courses in college teach skills, but if you don't have an aptitude, then even if you have the skills, you might not enjoy the task. And if you don't enjoy something, you won't do as well at it as if you enjoy it and have the skills. You can learn how to handle receiving and accounts payable, or how to manage refunds and security, and how to market your products and so forth. But do you know if you actually enjoy those tasks? Or are you even the type of person who's any good at them? How to ascertain your aptitudes. For many years, aptitude tests have existed that help you determine your personality profile, your tendencies, and your mental ability. Strangely enough, few people seek out such tests to learn their IQ and what interests them. They just blindly choose career paths and goals in life based on what appears to them to be the current hot trend. Then they wonder why they're stuck in dead-end jobs that they hate, surrounded by people who don't appreciate what they're capable of. There's nothing more important when a person is either starting out or changing their career path than taking a personality and a career self-assessment. After all, as the old saying goes, you can't fix what you don't know is broke. And perhaps even more importantly, you can't take advantage of a skill that you didn't know was rare or exceptional. Mumbo-jumbo science. Some people believe that psychology and any study of human characteristics is all mumbo-jumbo and doesn't apply to them because everyone's different and unique. But just because you are different, you're just like everybody else. And that doesn't mean that certain characteristics and laws of physics don't also apply to you. Anybody who's given a fair shake to a quality assessment test must admit that 80 to 90% of the report fits them to a T. And the scary part is that the other 10 to 20% might be just as fitting, we just don't want to acknowledge it. The modern assessments are all based on two basic methods, the Myers-Briggs and the Keirsey. The purpose behind the Myers-Briggs assessment was to create a way to express the theory of Jung's psychological types in a manner that's understandable and useful for everyday laymen. Jung believed that much of the seemingly random behavior was really the result of ordered and consistent values interpreted by the filters of perception and judgment. Since a blind man simply can't see and deaf people cannot hear, although they learn of those concepts, they'll never be able to utilize or understand the nuances of those senses that someone who has them will. Jung believed that different people could come to different conclusions, and Isabel Briggs Myers and her mother, Catherine Briggs, decided to take these insights and create a chart of various types of filters that most people do have, and place a structured test that would measure those filters to determine what personality types a different person may have. The resultant Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, has since proven highly effective in identifying the four dichotomies specified and implicit in Jung's theory. From their findings, they discovered that there are essentially 16 unique personality types that most folks fall into. By asking questions such as the following from the MBTI manual, they can, provided the person answers truthfully, ascertain which of the 16 categories that person falls into with an amazing degree of success. Sample questions include: do you prefer to focus on the outer world or your own inner world? Do you prefer to focus on basic information observation, or do you prefer to interpret and add meaning? When making decisions, do you first look at logic and consistency, or at the people and the special circumstances? And in dealing with the outside world, do you prefer to get things decided or to stay open to new info and options? Honest answers to these questions will help to determine your personality type, which is then identified by a 4-letter personality type code. All of these are detailed in the MBTI manual. A related exam, called the Keirsey Temperament Assessment, was created after David Keirsey was introduced to the MBTI test, and he noted that while useful and accurate, it really did not quite cover all of the human condition, in that while detailing the type of intellectual methods and insights a person might have, it didn't really indicate what type of person that individual might be. While closely related to the MBTI, there are some major differences between the two questionnaires, and the results of them are best taken together to get a full and accurate assessment of a person. Like Myers-Briggs, Keirsey stood on the shoulders of giants, only rather than Jung, he traced his concept back to the ancient Greek Hippocrates, who proposed the concept of 4 humors or temperaments, which he called sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, and melancholic. Published in his groundbreaking 1978 book, Please Understand Me, he found that combining sensing with perceiving and intuition with judging, the results were very similar to the aforementioned 4 humors, and to make the concept more understandable and useful, he renamed the humors to artisan, idealist, rational, and guardian when he published Portraits of Temperament in 1987. Keirsey believed that everyone can be both observant and introspective. When physically sensing the world through touch, taste, or smell, they're observant, but when they reflect or pay attention to thoughts, they're introspective. He further felt that you cannot do both at the same time, and that the degree to which people switch back and forth, called multitasking, has a direct effect on their behavior. In his assessment, he breaks down the personalities not into 16 distinct types, but into 4 rings, or tendencies. Those who were more observant were more real or down-to-earth than those who were more abstract or otherworldly, and he found they tended to focus more on global issues. This was his sensing and intuition group, and Keirsey used different words like pragmatic or rational versus idealists, and cooperative or artisans rather than guardians. But the results were not at all in conflict with the MBTI. Rather, they seemed complementary, as one might expect. The 4 temperaments, as defined by Keirsey, were artisans. These are the observant and pragmatic types. Typically, composers, crafters, performers, and promoters are the role variants seen in this temperament. The greatest strength is seen as tactical variation, and the most developed intellectual skill is either expediting or improvising. Guardians, the most observant and cooperative types associated with protectors, inspectors, supervisors, and provider role variants. They typically seek membership or belonging and have strong feelings of responsibility and duty. Their strength is logistical intelligence, and they often excel at organizing, facilitating, checking, and supporting. Idealists are the introspective and cooperative, of which the role variants include the healers, the counselors, the champions, and the teachers. Seeking meaning and significance, they seek their own unique identity. Foremost is their diplomatic intelligence, and with it they excel at clarifying, unifying, individualizing, and inspiring. The rationals are the introspective and pragmatic ones, whose variants include architects, masterminds, inventors, and field marshals. They tend to seek control over themselves and others, and focus on their knowledge and competence. Their greatest strength is strategic intelligence, and they tend to excel at logical investigations such as engineering, conceptualizing, theorizing, and coordinating. The 8 roles. 8 roles were postulated in Keirsey's method, which he determined to be the following. Operators are observant, pragmatic, and directive. Crafters and promoters are the 2 role variants of the directive artisans. Entertainers are observant, pragmatic, and informative. Composers and performers are the 2 role variants of the informative artisans. Administrators are observant, cooperative, and directive. Inspectors and supervisors are the 2 role variants of the directive guardians. Conservators are observant, cooperative, and informative. Protectors and providers are the two role variants of the informative guardians. Mentors are introspective, cooperative, and directive. Counselors and teachers are the two role variants of directive idealists. Advocates are introspective, cooperative, and informative. Healers and champions are the two role variants of the informative idealists. Coordinators are introspective, pragmatic, and directive. Masterminds and field marshals are the two role variants of the directive rationals. Engineers are introspective, pragmatic, and informative. Architects and inventors are two role variants of the informative rationals. Comparing the MBTI and Keirsey temperaments. There are several key differences in the two methods, the biggest being that Myers was focused on how people think and feel, while Keirsey was more concerned with how they behave. This is reasonable since, as Keirsey noted, you cannot directly observe how a person thinks or feels, but you can watch their behavior and actions, and thus determine without relying on their potentially false input what their temperament really is. Another difference lies in the fact that Myers used a linear four-factor model and Keirsey a field theory model in the descriptions intellectual versus real world, in other words. And of course, the two methods place different emphasis on different dichotomies and preferences. Both tests have value, and there's value in taking both tests and then comparing the results. Think of the MBTI as telling you who you think you are and want to be, and see the Keirsey as telling you what your actions say to the world that you are. Somewhere between the two lies the truth, what you are and who you are, and it's that information that's useful to you. Using these facts. So very interesting, you say. But what has any of this to do with my earning cash on the internet? Ha ha, grasshopper, if you only realized. Focusing on what you know best and what you're best suited to do is the surest way to success, while trying to work with and on things that you may have the skills to succeed at but that you find tedious, while not guaranteeing failure, can certainly contribute to it. We recommend taking these tests and then being sure that you focus your ClickBank site on articles and products that you can wholeheartedly support and enjoy, because that's what not only makes you rich, but makes you happy as well. Personality profiles. A short description of the Myers-Briggs and Keirsey methods can be found at developers.sun.com/toolkits/articles/desc.html. Career and self-assessment websites. One excellent, but not really free resource can be found at assessment.com. They have a wonderful and straightforward query tool to gather very detailed personality and skill data and place you with specific abilities and tendencies that can then be easily mapped to various jobs. A portion of the summary is available for free, with the full report available for $20, but the best choice is the $39 Job Seeker choice that also maps your skills and assessments to specific jobs and careers. A totally free and similar test provides you with the interest profiler scores without the depth or explanations, and that can be found at ioscar.org/tx/assessment/samenu.asp. And it also includes a work importance locator. This is similar in structure, and the 181 questions provide some fairly specific interest tendencies without any personality or skill-based insights, but it's very useful for obtaining scores that can be used to isolate job areas and the training required. You can find a free temperament assessment at 712educators.about.com and an interest profiler for free at ioscar.org/tx/ip/ipscore.asp. The interest profiler, by the way, shows jobs at which you would probably excel. Set for success. Choosing a business model. Business is a science, and fortunately, it's one that's been around so long that many books and websites exist to tell you all of the in-depth and dirty details. But it's not simple, and starting off wrong could lead to a very difficult and painful restart. So it's a good idea to consider carefully right up front just how big you could become and what business model you'll need in place then so that you can prepare it now. Of course, in this day and age, science is almost considered a religion all by itself. Dare to question what the high priests say, and you'll be shunned, or worse yet, excommunicated. But maybe we should just lighten up, because the barest fact of all is this. Business works this way. You have more than you need of something, and so does someone else. You both could use or want some of what the other has, and depending on who wants or needs the other's goods the most determines what kind of deal you'll work out, but the outcome is pretty much cut and dried. And that, my friend, is business in a nutshell. The rest of it's all just smoke and mirrors. Now, not that even in science there isn't room for smoke and mirrors. Just try having a laser light show without those. But as with anything, presentation is almost as important to success in business as in, say, love. How you dress up, clean up, and present yourself and your business is just as vital to how much success you'll actually have. So, in this section, let's discuss a few aspects of that. In particular, the traditional business model, that is, the physical and legal organization of your company, and the new business models now being touted, which are really just misplaced business plans that have been relabeled and moved into the business model category by paper pushers who can't seem to leave anything alone long enough for it to put down some roots. Just what is business? As we've talked before, business, at its heart, is really very simple. You get something for something else, and you hope to get something for nothing. That's probably the goal of any business transaction. Trade, or theft, if you will, is what business is all about. To put it in more modern terms, business is a company or organization that buys and sells goods, makes products, or provides services. Of course, if you can't do that and make a profit, you won't stay business very long, so there are a few more aspects to it than just those. If you believe in the Christian faith, then business is just as old as man himself, back to when Adam gave up a rib for what could arguably be the best business deal of all times, a woman who might have turned out to be a pain in his side, but she helped him start the human race as we know it and brought him much pleasure and company. On the other hand, if you're not of a religious nature, then it might interest you to know that thousands of years ago, women in Babylon ran their own businesses. And as far back as man has kept recorded history, the first documentation of business was of goods and events considered to be of value, like the number of animals slain by a particular hunter, or the number of jugs of wine given as a present to a lord. History has been full of businesses, and to figure out what works and what fails, and more importantly, why, all you must really do is study, and then apply the underlying human elements to the current trends and products. You see, times and goods may change, but people don't. And that you can take to the bank. So, what is a business model? During the past decade, the concept of a business model has become very popular. And along with the advent of new types of businesses, thanks primarily to the internet, new models have had to be created. In 2002, researchers on the web found 107,000 references to the term. In 2004, that number was more than 2,130,000 references. But in the vast majority of these sites, an actual definition of what the term means is nowhere to be found. Despite the fact that choosing the correct model can make or break your business, and that so much conversation is done about it, most people just assume that you know and understand what a business model is. Simply put, a business model is a definition and a plan for the day-to-day management and structure of an organization. So to be effective, a business model must specify what is valuable about the business. It must identify what market segment is to be served. It must define the structure of the company in both revenue generation and management structure. And finally, it needs to state the strategy of the business. So in short, a business model is what a business plan defines and helps to create. But in more down-to-earth matters, you must also define what type of business structure you want the company to follow. That means making a decision even prior to creating the business plan. So for this aspect of a business model, we're referring to one of those types of legal structures that a commercial organization can choose. The three most common types of models in use today include these. The sole proprietorship. This is a typical one-person business that's registered just under your name, maybe without even having a separate tax ID, but just using your own social security number. If you ever take photographs, do some writing, or even mow lawns for money, then technically you own a sole proprietorship business. Problems with this type of business include the fact that you're personally liable for any debts or obligations or lawsuits. So for that reason, it might be best to consider a different business model for your online website. Corporation. Being a corporation means that you've set up your business as a legal entity independent from you and anyone else who owns or manages it. So this can complicate some things, since the corporation, not you, owns the assets and income, and you have to work within certain legal requirements, but it provides a buffer and protection from possible litigation and accrued business debt, and that more than makes up for any hassles of starting or running a corporation. Another important thing to know is that corporations don't end when an owner dies or sells the company. As an independent entity, it continues until it's disbanded. Limited liability company. LLCs are similar to corporations in that they provide personal liability protection and they share a very similar tax structure, but they're easier to run than a corporation. They are a bit more difficult to set up, but if you want simple day-to-day management and think that you might take on some partners someday, an LLC could be the way to go. If you don't deliberately choose, then you automatically choose sole proprietorship whether you want to or not. And as you can see, that does have its pros and its cons. But for the sake of our 8 Days to Cash program using ClickBank, it's a reasonable model. But bear in mind that an LLC is a better choice if you know up front that you'll be branching out and maybe plan to take on some partners someday. Here's some legal advice. I'm not big on paying others to do things that I can do just as well myself. But when it comes to setting up a business, I have found it's often worth a couple of hours of your lawyer's time to make sure that all the proper forms and requirements have been met. So if you're going to form an LLC or incorporate, it's almost a necessity to see a lawyer about at least some of the details. Otherwise, you could probably handle it on your own, but don't hesitate to take advantage of the online forums and discussion groups from other small business owners who have been where you're going. Better to ask around up front than to get stuck in a rut that everyone else knew about, but you didn't ask. The definition defined. The current technical definition of a business model is this: a conceptual tool defining various aspects of business and their relationships, allowing an expression of a business plan or outlook for a specific firm. Now, this might sound a lot like a business plan, and indeed, the two go hand in hand, or at least they should, one driving and reinforcing the other. But the part of the business model that is defined and very important is the physical and legal structure that the company undertakes in pursuit of earning its income, and that's not really a vital part of the business plan as such. The very concept of a business model is really fairly recent, becoming popular only in the late 1990s. This was due in large part to changes in the IT, telecom, and related high-tech industries that happened when costs dropped and new methods of handling data became so commonplace that entire industries began to flounder. They lost their way in what had seemed like a stable and long-term business venture. So naturally, for executives and managers who have to have buzzwords and ways to discuss simple things like what's our long-term strategy, a special term and policy had to be created to define and understand this difficult and all-important new finding, and thus the business model came to be. In spite of all of this, as far as you and I and 8 Days to Cash are concerned, the important thing about a business model is not the details you have written out in your business plan, how you structure your politics and long-term strategies and so forth, but the legal model that you choose to run your business. Having a firm business model and a steady business plan might just be the most useful thing for a new business that's just getting on its feet. It's absolutely imperative that new businesses establish proper avenues for things like customer feedback, self-management, guidelines for growth, and perhaps even most importantly, defined limits so that you know when and if it's time to pull out. Just a few years ago, remember that many of the dot-commers lost their millions finding out their business plans just didn't work and their businesses failed. Now, a few smart ones, like Mark Cuban, sold while still ahead of the game, and others, like Google, managed to correct themselves in their business plans and forge on to achieve greatness. But the vast majority shattered and fell like a crystal chandelier in a shooting range. I can't think of any better proof than that constantly updated business plans and clear business models are necessary for actual ongoing success. But look around and you see that most beginning businesses don't have, nor do they even believe in the need for a business plan, and they haven't considered whether their business models are even best for their growing businesses. But hey, when you start your 8 days to cash, you'll be planning ahead to the 9th day from day one. And when that day comes, you'll be smiling and picking up the pieces of the other guy's broken chandelier when you race past them and achieve success. Put your best face forward. In the last section, we mentioned just how important appearances can be and why you want to present a polished and professional appearance in order to make the best impression possible. So in this section, let's expand on that a bit with some actual examples of steps you can implement that will make others see you as a trustworthy and reliable source for the goods and services they need. Look successful, be successful. Now that's as true today as it ever was. And a huge portion of starting out right and being set for success in the online world is the look and the feel of your website. Not only will this be vital to your marketing success, but it says something about you, not just as a person, but as a business entity. Are you serious and dedicated? Or maybe just a little playful? Do you care more about content and getting your message across? Or do you share equally the concern of usability and aesthetics? Rest assured, customers will notice if you're just showing off with flashy presentations and animations that aren't really vital to your message, especially if they have to wait on them to download. Also, using non-standard fonts and unique approaches to layout may be fun the first time or two, but for repeat visitors, it's an annoyance. So, look successful. In order to do that, your sites must be clean, they must download quickly, and they must be neat and orderly in appearance. Personal appearance. With an online business, your personal appearance will normally not be an issue. But let's talk about some facts that you really should be aware of anyway. Did you know, for instance, that when you first meet someone, they form an opinion of you within the first 30 seconds? And worse yet, the opinion they form never fully changes. You can modify it a little, change it or rectify it in their mind a little, but they'll always first remember their first summary of what they thought you were. Oh, and it gets worse. They don't just form an image of you. They create a whole list of suppositions based on that one impression, all in 30 seconds. In fact, studies have confirmed that the average person forms a tentative impression within 1/2 minute, including thoughts on someone's educational level, their career competence and success, their personality, level of sophistication, trustworthiness, sense of humor, and even social heritage. So, what do you base all of this on? Well, it's almost entirely visual. Clothing, hairstyle, physical bearing, mannerisms, the way you smile or acknowledge someone, as well as any nonverbal communications you're putting out. All of those influence the decision that someone makes about who and what you are. And as we stated, these impressions last for a very long time. The term is called the halo effect, and it colors all future dealings with you, whether good or bad. Hey, how about one more shocker to go along with that one? How you look affects how you think about yourself, too. Even if you don't actively seek yourself out, the average person sees themselves in mirrors and reflections of different kinds, maybe 50 to 60 times each day, and how you look can change your mood and opinion of yourself in very substantial ways. Puppet masking. By now, you're rolling your eyes and saying, yeah, but so what? It's not like I'm going to be online via a webcam on my website. Well, it brings to mind that Dilbert series when he was video conferencing. Of course, you feel that so long as your website is presenting the right image, what you look like isn't important, unless you're physically meeting someone, right? Well, yes and no. Who and what you are includes how you look and how you treat yourself. With 8 days to cash, we not only want you to make money on the internet, we want you to succeed at business. And successful people become successful because they believe in themselves. Part of believing in yourself is making changes to improve yourself and being honest with yourself. So don't hide behind a puppet or a web page. Be the person you want to be for real, and it will show in every aspect of your life, including your website, your business letters and proposals, and your business and marketing plans. Dotting the I's. Now back to the business. So you've picked out a business model and you're all set. Now's a good time to sit down and write out at least a quick business plan that lays out what's going to happen in the next year. So at this point, you're ready to obtain any DBA, that's doing business as, or state tax IDs as required, and set up shop with City Hall. And this is one time when starting out with the right foot is definitely recommended. Although a sole proprietorship can use the owner's social security number as a tax ID, and you can probably run a ClickBank website without any special permits or forms, it's better that you get that in writing from the county clerk than wait to explain it to a tax court several years down the road. There are many excellent resources on starting small businesses, and since we fully expect you to expand and continue your success after completing your 8 Days to Cash program, it's wise to review other business startup documents and ebooks in addition to this one to make sure that you're taking full advantage of everything that's been presented to you. Part of doing things right is knowing what your options are, and only you can fully determine that, since it's you who knows what you're capable of. Pixel perfect. Of course, when someone uses the word image, the first thing into your mind is probably a picture or a photograph, but that translates into online images on your website. So let's spend a few more moments going over some of the things we touched on earlier about image size optimization for downloading versus the way to ensure that quality is not compromised. Professionals wanted. Sometimes you can save yourself a ton of money by doing things on your own, but there are reasons that you pay surgeons to cut into you, reasons that you have to at least have electrical and plumbing work certified by licensed professionals, and reasons that photographers carry all that equipment and can charge as much as they do for their services. To get professional quality results means having knowledge of at least a few basic aspects of photography and advertising, and having a quality camera and decent lighting isn't enough if you don't know how to use them, or if you don't have a proper setting in which to fully take advantage of their capabilities. The secrets revealed. As a part-time photographer, I have many of the skills necessary to take my own photos of goods and services that I sell on my sites, and most of them I actually learned in classrooms and through online training. So consider this a little freebie as part of the 8 Days to Cash package. Now, there are secrets to taking good photos that anybody can apply, including you. And these secrets will greatly enhance the likelihood of getting good results. So I'm going to share a few of them with you now. First, always use the best equipment that you can find, even if you have to borrow it. Second, use natural sunlight where possible, reflected from a white cloth or a sunscreen. Third, take shots at, above, and below the f-stop settings and speeds that you think are best. This is called bracketing the exposure. By the way, if you aren't using a camera with f-stop and speed controls, go out and buy or rent one. You're wasting your time otherwise. Next, always take at least 3 shots of every setting, and vary the focus on each one so that you can crop if necessary. And if you're using conventional film, have a proof sheet of the negatives made before you have any prints done. That way you can use a magnifier to find just the images you want to print, and that saves you a ton of money. Finally, most print shops can set up digital images for you when the negatives are developed and put them on a CD. This is well worth the extra cost, and it's certainly something that I recommend. Use them wisely. A good shot can be used in many unexpected ways. I've used otherwise useless pictures of landscapes and discolored water scenes as backgrounds for some great custom work. Starfields from the public domain can also make great backgrounds and accent images. Photos that you might not have any use for on your website may work great on letterhead or envelopes to help set a mood or convey a feeling. Start really looking at postcards, screensavers, and other images around you, and you just might be surprised at how ordinary scenes, taken out of context or shot from an unusual angle, can create a certain mood. A smart businessman takes advantage of this fact once he realizes it, and we know that you're smart since you're here with us in this ebook. But keep in mind that you can never use any image that you don't have full rights to use. Lifting an image that you think is public domain or one that's freely available could still lead to legal difficulties down the road and even a lawsuit. So, if necessary, hire out a recreation and then copyright it yourself. While that brings additional cost, it will help you avoid such problems and will also make your site unique. Copyright details. Confusion seems to be the rule whenever you talk about copyright issues, but the simple fact is this: Put all of your images and documents from your website, or anything you want to copyright for that matter, onto a CD, include a small fee, and ship it to the Copyright Office of the United States government, and you'll have the copyright. Their website, by the way, is uspto.gov. The procedure is simple enough, and fees can be as little as $35. So taking the time to ensure that your images are protected is certainly well worth the time and effort. And there's even a phone number that you can call for information and assistance. It's area code 202-707-3000. Some details on what copyright terms are and what is not considered public domain can be found at the USPTO website. The USPTO website will certainly give you all of the history and details on copyright issues, but here's what you really need to know. The current comprehensive copyright laws took effect in 1978. They include publishing, distribution, and photocopying any copyrighted work without the creator's permission or license as a legal offense. Technically, the moment the shutter is pressed, provided the image being photographed is itself not protected by trademark or copyright, the photographer owns the copyright for that image. The only exception is employees where the company has a contract giving it rights to the work in question prior to the image itself being taken. Otherwise, a license or permission would still be required. You cannot copyright a concept or any work that has no artistic merit. It must be an original work of authorship. In other words, for instance, you can't copyright a phone book or a list of names, but you might be able to copyright a list of names done in calligraphy. The reason behind the law was the copying machine itself. So registration of items for copyright was really set up with magazines in mind to prevent republication of stories and images from existing works. However, the reason to register your work is that without registration, the burden of proof and all legal costs fall upon you. But if you can prove that registration took place prior to the infringement, then you can be compensated both your legal fees and punitive damages, up to $150,000 per image. Even though any work, whether labeled as such or not, is legally copyrighted from the moment it's created, for registration to have the full force of law, the work must be properly registered with the Copyright Office before the infringement takes place. So, sending in your registration via FedEx or registered receipt requested mail is a good idea simply because it provides stamped dates that can be used as proof if you ever need to go to court. The two ways to register are either as a collection of unpublished images or as published images, and the regulations for unpublished work, that means you register before you use it or sell a license to anyone else, are that it must 1. Have the correctly completed application form, 2. Include the $30 non-refundable filing fee for each application, and 3. Have a non-returnable deposit of the work to be registered. Now, you can put 2 or more photographs into a collection, provided that they are related in one of the following ways. They are assembled in an orderly form, or they all have a single title identifying the collection as a whole, such as Web Page Images, 2007, 1 of 900, 2 of 900, etc., or all of the images are by the same artist or have been contributed by the artist. The actual regulation from the Copyright Office says this: published collections of photographs and all of the copyrightable elements of a unit of publication may be registered on a single form with a single fee if all of the photographs are owned by the same copyright claimant. Registration of a collection of photographs extends to each copyrightable element in the collection. There is no limit to the number of photographs that may be included in an unpublished collection. In the case of published work, 2 copies of the published work are required for deposit with the registration, not 1. Also, published work must be registered within 90 days of publication. At this point, you probably wonder how anyone manages to get away with using clip art and other copyrighted images on their sites without fear of amazing fines and the law coming down on them. But you have to realize that many otherwise illegal infringements of copyright are covered under the law of fair use, which gives certain groups access to news and educational information even if it's copyrighted. And parody also falls under the fair use doctrine. So, as long as you are using the look and feel for the purpose of satire, you are protected, and of course the government can do whatever it likes. A recent update to the copyright law, called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, protects web hosts and providers from being sued if their clients infringe on copyrights. but the providers must remove the pages in question to remain immune from prosecution. Now, all of this should make it clear why you want to use your own images, or ones that you've licensed legally, on your letterhead, your web pages, and your advertisements. And for the images that you create on your own, registering could allow you to pursue litigation against someone who violates your rights. After all, the potential for a $100,000 payday for someone stealing an image from your site, that's certainly worth the $30 registration fee all by itself. Image resolution. The images on your page need to be crisp and unique. Paying to have them made for you and then registering them is a good idea, but more than that, they need to be stored on the page at a size that looks good and downloads fast. Minimizing any unnecessary elements like background music and speech or anything else that will slow down performance and annoy your customers is also very important. Finally, it's good to keep a clean, consistent look and feel to the entire site, including throughout all subpages, and when possible, on target landing pages as well. The most powerful tool in your arsenal of image is your web page. A professional, quick-loading page speaks volumes of the trustworthiness of your company. Flashy entries and shockwave extravaganzas that visitors must suffer through on each visit or bypass to get to the heart of the site tell them that you're more concerned with showing off what you can do than showing them what you have to offer. So lead with the good stuff. Find out what your customers want, then give it to them. That, my friend, is the key to business success, no matter what your market is. Finding a need and fulfilling that need at a price the customer can afford that still provides you with a profit. Building your site 1, 2, 3. When it comes time to actually build your site, you'll likely feel overwhelmed because of the sheer number of choices to be made. Do you set up your own server with a static IP address? Or do you have someone else host the site for you? Or do you use some combination of the two? Which software package do you use to create and maintain the page? What images and forms or tables do you need? And how and from what will you generate them? Luckily, the 8 days to cash method, using ClickBank to get you started, will make most of this surprisingly simple. The vast majority of the images and legwork needed will actually come from the landing pages of the products that you'll sell and link to. And packages like SiteSell's SBI can take almost all of the worry and work right out of the equation if you just want to dive in and expand later. The very first thing to do is decide if you would rather buy a domain name and then pay to have it hosted for you, or get a domain and host it yourself on your own dedicated server, or go with a turnkey service like SBI to simply start making money. Remember, if you choose the first option, many hosting service sites offer a free first site portal page off of your domain registrar, and on that, you can build a website which will more than meet the needs of getting a ClickBank site up and running. So if you decide that you'll have to hire work done, or even if you plan to do most or all of it yourself, some questions that are good to think of before you begin designing include these. What products are you selling? How many hits per month do you expect? How many and what types of files will you be storing on your site? Will you be handling live ordering or just redirecting? And finally, if you are going to handle live orders, what types of payments are accepted? If you've already laid out your business plan, then the answers to these questions are easy to figure. These give you enough detail to begin conceptualizing what your website layout and structure needs are going to be. You might even take a pen and paper, draw out some plans, decide what images and forms need to be created. Then you can determine whether or not you're going to need professional help in creating any parts of your page before you actually get started. And if you find that you do need help, the good news is that today, finding a freelancer is easier than at any other time in history. With the rise of sites like iFreelance.com and other online service sites, you can bid for and hire a professional to handle all or part of your task quickly and easily. Here's a list of important details that any pro you want to hire is going to need to know before starting work. And by the way, if your contract worker doesn't ask any of these, that's probably a reason to be suspicious of them. What's your goal for the site? How are you handling sales and payments? What vendor or system do you plan to use? What's your budget for both initial design and maintenance and updating? What are your expectations for maintenance? Where will artwork and materials for the site come from? and who owns the copyrights to all of those materials, and what are competitor sites doing that you like or dislike. Anytime you plan to hire someone, you need to first check out references, and in the case of artists or web designers, check out their portfolio of past work and websites. And if you do speak with previous clients, ask these questions. How timely is the provider in responding to contact? Are they open to criticism and feedback? How do they do with maintenance and follow-up? And did they meet the quoted price and time frame? Once you're satisfied, get a written, signed contract. Receiving this by fax is okay as well. Include timelines for milestones and completion, and a clear list of who's responsible for what and when. Include penalties and bonuses for late or early work, and be sure to stipulate exactly how and when updates will be contracted in the future. To help you out with the timeline and ensure that you're prepared, let's do a little step-by-step as a guide that you can use during your own website creation process. Step 1. Lay out a business plan detailing your goals. For instance, selling ClickBank's ebooks to clients, what types of ebooks, how to target and advertise, etc., to get an idea of the type of page and domain name and links that you'll want to have in place. Step 2. Create a complete website design on paper, including sketches of images and layouts. Step 3. Make a list of each unique item or image that needs to be created, and then decide whether A. you can create them, or B. you need to hire that work done. Step 4. If you need to hire work done, you need to compile into lists all of the items you need based on their type. For instance, a list for images, a list for forms, one for any database or advanced features, so that you can get bids and prepare licensing for their creation prior to completing the site. Step 5. Get bids and completion estimates for any work that needs to be done and for hosting. Add this information into your business plan and then adjust anything that you had miscalculated. Step 6. Working with your designers and the host you've selected, decide what software you're going to use to create the page and then purchase it. Bear in mind that a used or outdated copy is generally a good bargain in most cases, and any backup or utility programs you're going to need. Step number 7. Create and compile all of the elements into a web page that works locally or on a test server to make sure that your concept works. Step 8. Visit the web page with several different browsers and all possible display settings to make sure of compatibility and to allow you to address any layout problems. Step number 9. Once everything checks out, publish to the web and confirm that the site is active. Step 10. List your site with all of the necessary search engines to begin getting public notice. And finally, Step 11. Promote and advertise as per your business plan. Secrets to creating a great site. There are so-called secrets to successful sites, but they really aren't all that secret. They're just not popular with most web designers and unresearched by would-be Michelangelos who get carried away with the power that their site has unleashed in their hands. A few of the top points and secrets that you should consider are these. First, the site needs to look good, not necessarily great, but not messy or chaotic, and certainly not too busy or cluttered. Try to use black text on white backgrounds when you can. Use "click here for" labels and remove any distracting elements. Keep it simple. Second, make your content valuable and easy to access. Third, be sure your site downloads as quickly as it can. Help this along by A. using the absolute minimum number of images necessary, B. being certain that all images are not larger in dots per inch or physical size than they absolutely must be, C. creating separate pages for each clearly separate bit of content, D. using as little web code as possible, and E. test your download speeds using your website creation program's download test features. If you don't have such a tool, then visit a site like netmechanic.com. Fourth, have built-in structured methods to update and change the information that you offer. A way to accomplish this might be to A. have some forum or other interactive user discussion group as a free offering associated with the site. This keeps people coming back and checking your page even after they visit the first time. B. Maintain a blog on the page so that it gets updated, preferably daily, and causes people to come back to see the new content. And C. You can hold contests and give away freebies at regular intervals, encouraging people to sign up and come back to see who won, what the next prize will be, and so forth. Number 5. Keep people involved. Be interactive. 6. Be certain your search engine layout and keywords are search engine friendly. Incidentally, there are tons of documents on the internet and how-to pages that tell you the secrets of this, and we'll cover the basics a little later on here as well. 7th, make it easy to navigate. Every page must have an easily discoverable way to 1. Go back one page, and 2. Go back home. Not everyone knows the backspace key and refreshing will do that, and they just might leave rather than bother trying to figure it out. Number 8, sell your site. Get links out there to other sites ASAP. Write articles and put them on your site. Advertise your website on business cards, billboards, in pay-per-click programs like AdWords, or even start an email newsletter. And finally, number 9, use only the technology you need. Avoid Flash, avoid frames, minimize any animations or the need to download any additional software or plugins. Don't use pop-ups, and don't try to bypass common security settings. If you do, most people will simply surf away. Promoting your site. At this point, you're ready to make your site visible to the huge multitude of folks out there who want to spend their cash, and some of which you're probably willing to take. Now, the act of letting them know your site exists is called promoting your site, and while there are entire disciplines dedicated to just how to do that, there are a few simple and easy-to-use tricks that you can include, such as maintaining a good title site and using appropriate keywords so that search engines can find you easily, that we'll touch on here. First, you must use keywords that you want to have identified with your company, both on your home page and in the meta tag of the web page. If you hire the web page created, be sure to supply your web page creator a list of keywords you want to have appear, since some search engines include these descriptions just beneath your link. You need to keep the description to 254 or less characters, of which typically only the first 55 to 60 will actually show in the search engine. Along with that, here are some other tips that you can use, but they're not commonly known. Use header tags of the H1, H2, and H3 variety or any keywords on your pages to make certain they are flagged by search engines. Place keywords within the first couple of paragraphs of each page when you can. Try to use keywords inside of hyperlinks that go to other pages or sites. Avoid frames or complicated navigation systems. Keep it simple for the search engine to index. By the way, if you find your site doesn't index correctly, submit a Google sitemap request to google.com/webmasters/sitemaps/login or use Greg Tarrant's Google Sitemap Generator and Editor at sitemapdoc.com. Attempt to align your pages around specific keywords. Submit your web page to every search engine you can find for addition to their database. And although you'll see many people who are willing to do this for you for money, no one will do it as well as you can do it yourself for free. In addition, many sites can be found simply by searching for Add Your URL, including Google, Yahoo, MSN, AOL Search, and Ask.com. Use software and books to ensure that you've optimized your search capability for search engines. Check your ranking and compare your site to others using web position at wilsonweb.com/afd/webposition.htm, and also see Dr. Wilson's Plain Spoken Guide to Search Engine Optimization at wilsonweb.com/ebook/seo.htm. Advertise. Make certain that your URL is on any headers, business cards, and in any telephone and yellow page ads that you run. Arrange for links to and from related sites. Consider programs like Google's AdSense that place your ads for a fee per click on search engine queries. And finally, submit your site to directories like the Open Directory Project. You'll find that one at dmoz.com. Yahoo provides the Yahoo directory, docs.yahoo.com, but bear in mind that Yahoo will charge you $299 a year. A few other directories exist at about.com and also business.com. Link exchanges. Another good practice is to involve yourself in a link exchange program. You put a link to another site in exchange for that site having a link to your site. That makes it convenient for visitors of sites that complement each other to easily locate other sites of interest, and it gets your name out there to be seen as well. So, let's say that you sell luggage, and you know of another company that sells travel clothing. It would make sense for both of you to reciprocate links. You can even automate the process with software. Get a hold of Evoy's Site Sell Value Exchange at sales.sitesell.com or try automated link building programs like Zeus at cyber-robotics.com. How to make search engines work for you. First, use the meta tags in your title page and the heading styles H1, H2, and H3 on any keywords that you want to have trigger a search. Now, you can also organize pages to have an effect on how well your site will utilize existing search engine algorithms. How to optimize your site. A whole industry exists called the search engine optimization, or SEO companies. They get money from people who need help getting their sites ranked higher. They can't really promise any such thing, though, and recent illegal and false claims to the contrary have led to legal issues and a bad name on the entire industry, even though the service actually is of some value. Now, a good rule of thumb is just not to respond to anyone who solicits you and then promises they'll get you a higher ranking. Remember, just like the saying promises, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And if it sounds too good to be true, well, you know that it probably is. If you ever do find yourself having problems with an unethical SEO, well, report them to the FTC, that's the Federal Trade Commission. Find them at ftc.gov, or you can use the phone at 877-FTC-HELP. And if the company's based in a foreign country, visit econsumer.gov. ClickBank Tools and Reports. The secret to the 8 days to cash on the Internet program is this: an entire world's worth of information, software, and ebooks, and a tried and true payment system that you don't even have to pay for is already in place. All you need to do to cash in is have a website with traffic and provide links to landing sites for related goods from the thousands that already exist on ClickBank. So whether you go whole hog and decide to create an incorporation and expand to direct sales or even creation and marketing of your own products someday, or you just open a simple registrar or SBI-based site with links to ClickBank landing sites, you can start making money, as little or as much money as you want, in days, or really, possibly, even within hours. One thing that will help you is an understanding of ClickBank, and you need to know how to find products that fit into the niche that you've decided to fill. So let's say, for instance, that you have a great site on geocaching and you have hundreds of visitors each day. Now, using a site like that to promote business and how-to books, well, it wouldn't go over very well. But let's say that you instead have links to camping products, hiking stuff, and guides to off-the-beat locations. Now, that is something that your audience would leap at. So how do you locate the products that you know your visitors would be willing to buy in the vast ClickBank storehouse? Let's go over again how you become a ClickBank vendor. And then we'll look at some ClickBank tools that you just might want to take advantage of. Signing up as a ClickBank affiliate is very simple. Just visit clickbank.com and click the Sell Products link. Then on the menu on the next page, click the Sign Up option. Then simply fill out and submit the form. The information they want is basically the stuff they need so that they can send your checks to you: your name, your address, and your contact information. Finding gold with advanced ClickBank searches. Most of the time, you'll simply use the search engine to access the ClickBank marketplace and find products, software, ebooks, and so forth that are relevant to your company. But you can download the marketplace directly and then use your own software or even your web browser, although that's not really optimal to do it that way, to view and search the titles directly. Download the zip file from clickbank.com/feeds/marketplace_feed_v and then the number 1.xml.zip. The marketplace is updated daily at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so new entries are always coming in. Checking back or setting up a daily parsing for new offerings is generally a good idea. But if you do download the marketplace, any program that reads XML, and that includes Microsoft Word, should be able to open it just fine. But don't be surprised if you experience a long delay when you try to do that. Your computer might seem to hang for up to several minutes even. Just be patient or use a program that parses XML data in segments. Be imaginative in your searches. For instance, there is little that shows up for camping, but there are software programs for campgrounds. Using variations of words and near searches can provide you with hits that otherwise simply would not show.